what is the purpose of the draft tube, and we arrive at some equation uh, which shows what should be the pressure at your entry to the draft tube or exit of your turbine and related to your head actually. So it should be something like at what quantity percentage, that is if I call Pa by rho g as the atmospheric head, and h is nothing but it is the height above which I have to place my turbine, and there is something called as what should be my conversion rate, how much I am going to convert it. So if my 1 minus k, what is called, I call it as, if I am able to reduce the losses or draft losses or frictional losses, if I am able to reduce, then that becomes your draft tube efficiency. So if it is 95% or 98%, it's well and good. Okay, so that's what we looked into it. And today we will see one more one of the thing usually happening in your turbines is the cavitation. Okay, let us define it. What is this cavitation? See, it is some kind of a phenomena. I can tell it's a kind of phenomena where if the pressure at the exit of the turbine falls below the vapor pressure, okay, falls below the vapor pressure, this will lead to change of phase of your liquid, that is your water, into bubble. Okay, so there is a formation of the bubbles if the pressure at the exit of the turbine falls below your vapor pressure. Okay, once the bubbles are formed, what actually, these bubbles will move along with the stream of water. And these bubbles, when they are moving, they move and go and stick onto the surface of your, maybe your draft tube or your exit of your turbine, maybe your turbine enclosure itself. Turbine enclosure itself, they will stick onto it. Or it may be to the bed casing or your draft tube casing, whatever may be, all the your surface is going to stick actually. And when the fluid flows over it, when the fluid flows over it actually, it's something like I'm collapsing the bubbles, collapsing the bubbles. So this phenomena is called as a cavitation. Okay, let me write it. It is a phenomena. It is a phenomena of formation. Phenomena of formation of bubbles at the exit of the turbine. The exit of the turbine. Why it is? Because at the turbine exit, the pressure will be below your atmospheric. Okay, when the pressure falls below the vapor pressure, falls below the vapor pressure of the fluid. Okay, so when this happens, these bubbles will attach to the surface of the casing, that is turbine casing, or the turbine blade. Okay, turbine blade and casing, and or collapsed when the stream of fluid strikes them. Okay, when the stream of fluid strikes them, they collapse, and this phenomena I call it as cavitation. Now, to avoid this cavitation, we need to look into the draft tube. Okay, how to avoid this cavitation? Okay, I do have a draft tube something like this. This is my a draft tube. Just I'm writing a simple. It can be any type of a draft tube. Okay, this is a draft tube, and it is the exit of the draft tube is immersed in your tailpipe. So this is my water surface, and this is, I call it as 2, 2, and this is your 3, 3. Okay. Now, what is the pressure acting on this surface? It is atmosphere. And what is the pressure here? This is the pressure, we call it as P. And if I have some reference, this is my reference point. Okay, this is my reference point. If I take it, this height will be Z3 and this height will be Z2. Let me call it as Z2. So now the draft tube is between 2 and 3, and this is your, I call it as some H0, and already we have seen this, we call it as H. So this H plays a very, very significant role. Now let us look at some of the conditions under which there won't be, or there may be a possibility of cavitation. Okay. Now first condition, suppose my P2 is below your atmosphere. Okay. Second condition, if my P2 is below your vapor pressure. And the third condition, my P2 greater than your what we call it as your vapor pressure. These are the conditions under which it has to work. Now, as I told, at any given point, if my pressure at this particular point, I call this as P2 exit of the turbine, pressure at P2, if it falls below your vapor pressure, there is a formation of bubbles. If I am able to eliminate this condition, so this is fine. P2 can be less than your atmospheric, that's acceptable. P2 greater than your vapor pressure, that's acceptable. Okay. But I need to ensure that at any given point it doesn't fall below your vapor pressure. To do this, let us write the equation already what we have derived. That is for your draft tube, that is P2 by rho g is equal to PA by rho g minus H minus 1 minus K into your V2 square minus V3 square by 2G. We have this expression. Now, the whole thing is some kind of a head actually. This is your head. This is the head actually. I need to ensure that this whole Z, so if I call that as a Z, then this equation is P2 by rho g is equal to PA by rho g minus Z. Okay. Now, for a no cavitation, I should ensure that this quantity is greater than, see, this quantity is greater than your volume pressure or your PV. So to do that, to obtain this condition, what I do actually, to obtain the condition for no cavitation, to obtain the condition for no cavitation. To do this, what we do actually, this P2 by rho g is as it is, PA by rho g minus Z. I need to ensure that this particular thing is, so if this is, if I'm able to maintain at 2, this is, I need to ensure this is maintained at your 3. Only that condition will lead to, that is, if I try to write it, that is P2 by rho g plus here P vapor pressure by G is equal to PA by rho G minus this thing. So if I know the volumetric, or sorry, vapor pressure, if I know the vapor pressure, at any given point for a given water, if I know the pressure, if I design the pressure, what should be the exit pressure at your what I call it as turbine exit. This is called as a turbine exit. If I know that, then I can place my turbine. In that extension, so that I can satisfy it and I can get no gas. So there won't be any formation of bubbles. This is the condition. If this condition we are able to achieve, then I can clearly tell that the formation of cavitation, or I can safeguard my installation. Okay, and this is called as net positive suction head. See, the whole thing, whatever we have, no, this one 3 I call it as net positive head. Net positive head. And what is this actually? We have studied similar kind of NPSH in case of centrifugal pump. Here, this NPH, or a net positive head, is equal to, this is the thing what I have, PA by rho G minus Z minus PB by rho G. This is nothing but, anyhow, atmospheric head is fine. We don't have, see, atmospheric head is there. This becomes your operating head. This becomes your operating head above the tail race. Above the tail race for a given situation or condition. I'll come to that sketch and try to explain. Now look at this. The whole thing, if I call that as a Z, the whole thing, if I call it Z, so I need to ensure, so this is nothing but your Z, whatever I have, no, that is H minus of your, the H minus of this particular thing. The whole thing I call it as Z. No, I need to ensure, see, I have to play with this particular Z in such a way that the operating it is, because I can't expect always the tail race to be a certain thing. So tail race also, there can be the level of the water in the tail race may go down, or sometimes it may come up. That means your submersion, or maybe your exit of your draft tube, at maybe at certain amount of time it will be 10% submerged in the tail race. At few times it may be 20%, 25% submerged in this thing. So this head H will be varying. So this H will be varying. So when this H is varying, any of this friction 1 minus C, V2 minus V3 square. See, V3 square, I need to ensure it should be 0. To be very precise, the velocity at the exit of your drag to be 0, I need to ensure it's as low as possible. Then only I can clearly tell that my kinetic energy has been completely absorbed or converted. Anyway, V2 will be exact, maybe the exit velocity. So if my draft tube is more efficient, then this quantity, this Z quantity, so it is something like H is equal to some 10 meters. Let me take it 10 meters. 10 minus your V2 is around maybe around 10 meters per second. So 10 square minus 0.1 or 0.2 square divided by 2G into 0.98. So this number, I need to ensure that that particular thing at any given point, it never goes below your vapor pressure. That should not lead to the pressure at this particular point P2 going below your vapor pressure. So if I'm able to achieve that condition, then your whole turbine is safe. And the whole thing, what we call that as net positive head actually. It is not net positive suction head, that is different in that you used to see in centrifugal pumps. There we call this as net positive head. So there is something called as cavitation number. Okay, it was given by one of the engineer. We call it as an engineer and mathematician. His name is Thomas. So in his name, this we have this number. We call that as Thomas cavitation number, and few books they given by the symbol is sigma. What is this actually? Thomas cavitation number sigma is the ratio of net positive head under which your turbine is working to its what is the operating head, that is your net head under which your turbine is working. So if I write it, this will be PA by rho g minus your Z minus PV by rho g divided by H. Okay, this is your regular Thomas cavitation number. We have one more thing. See, criticality means what is the minimum under which it can work. So there is something called as a criticality, that is you have an upper spec limit and lower spec limit. Just like we had what is called as minimum suction lift or maximum suction lift, where we have defined net positive suction head. No? In the similar fashion, we have Thomas cavitation number is also a critical one. A critical Thomas cavitation number. What is it actually? It is the net positive head which is critical. What should be my head in that case? Is it 0.2 is my critical? It is 0.3 is my critical. So anything above that, it's fine. I can work. But once the number goes below that, there is every possibility of formation of bubbles. Okay. Now, what we try to do here actually, if in the critical thing, this atmospheric pressure, see in the NPH critical, what we try to do actually, we try to put NPH critical is P2 by rho g minus Z minus PV by rho g by A. So this is my critical number. So instead of atmospheric, the atmospheric 10.3 meters. But if you take what is my critical, what is the limit minimum it can go, it should be exit pressure of your turbine. So what we try to do, maybe in the note I can read, your regular net positive head, PA is replaced by your P2. What is this P2? P2 is your turbine exit pressure. And one thing you have to be clear that your P2 is less than your P atmospheric. Your P2 is less than, see, PA can be 10.3, P is 10 PA by rho g is 10.3 meters. This may be around 7 or 8 meters. That means this is less than 1. So what will happen? I will end up with a critical number. I will end up with a smaller number, which is the threshold number. So this threshold number of your critical Thomas cavitation number is very, very important when you are designing your turbines or installation at the time of installations. Okay. See, from the lab perspective, we have done few things actually. One is performance characteristic of a turbine at constant head, constant speed, and constant efficiency. So whatever we have, no? So those things, if you look at efficiency versus some specific speed. So let us look at some performance curves. Let us look at the performance curves of turbine. Performance curves of the turbine. Okay, let us look at the first curve where I do have a non-dimensional speed, that is specific speed on the x-axis, and the efficiency, overall efficiency on my y-axis. Okay, so let me put it. This is your specific speed. This is non-dimensional, that is in radians. Okay, on my x-axis, on my y-axis, I have efficiency in percentage, or it can be in terms of decimal also. So if I go by 0, some maybe to the scale 80%, because 60, 70 and all is very difficult to get. So 80, 85. So let me go by in that case scale. So there is a break here. There is a break here. 80, 85, 90, 95, some 100. Okay. If you want, you can go in terms of 2% also. So 90, 94 is what we are going to get. On the x-axis, let me go with maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pure non-dimensional. Now we have seen that the specific speed of your Pelton wheel is very less, and your efficiencies will be in and around 90, 92%. If I try to draw a curve for that, actually, my efficiency for your Pelton turbine will be something like this. Okay, your efficiency curve for a Pelton wheel will be something like this. This is the range. This will be a range. This is for a low specific speed. Maybe 0.6 or 0.7 or 0.9 or something will be specific speed. And at a specific speed of around 0.5 or 0.6, I will be reaching a peak of around 90-95%. But what happens to a Francis turbine? Francis turbine has a longer range. Okay, longer range for your specific speed. So it may start with somewhere around maybe around 0.8 or specific speed. It can go up to 90-95%, and it can go up to around 2 or 3. So this is for your Francis turbine. Okay. Now what happens to your Kaplan, that is your axial flow turbines, Kaplan or Popular turbines? They have a higher specific speed because they operate at very lower head. So their specific speed may start around 2.5. Their efficiencies will be around 90-95% if you look at it. So they will be operating in this range. So they will be operating in. This is for your, I can call it as, it is for a Kaplan or a propeller turbine. And they are axial flow. And Francis, if you look at it, maybe the modern Francis turbine may come somewhere here. The Francis turbine may somewhere, because it tries to overlap with respect to your Kaplan or propeller. Now similarly, if you look at with respect to the loading conditions, it's very, very important. If you look at with respect to loading conditions, how does they load? Okay, loading conditions, if I look at it, if this is your efficiency and your load. Okay, so that is, let me call it as, let me put it as percentage of full load, and this side I have your efficiency. It can be once again percentage. So here the efficiencies may start as low as something like 10-20%. So let me start with 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Fine. I can't have more than 100%. So here now, so 20 I can go with. So 40, 60, 80, 100. Fine. If you want, you can go in terms of 10 also. So 20, 30, 40, 50. Also I can go 20, Let me go with it. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and maybe 90. It may be difficult to go beyond 90, 95, so that should be enough. Okay, now what happened to your Pelton wheel? See, your Pelton wheel, as I increase my full load, okay, it depends on the loading, and you might have seen that. This you can cross check. Maybe from percentage of around 80, 82, it is almost remains flat, something like this. For a Pelton wheel, this is for a, a Pelton wheel. This is the characteristic. That means whatever may be the load, if it's 60% or 80% of the full load, whatever it may be, its efficiency almost remains same. So that's why we go for maybe 2 jets, 3 jets, or 4 jets. So the loading condition is almost, so we should not have too much of fluctuations with the loading. That's one thing. But at full load conditions, which large discharges, if you want actually, we have to go for Francis because it can operate at, it can operate from maybe around 60-70%, this percentage, and it can operate at 70-80% of the load. See, it can go to peak at 80% load condition, something like it's a low like this. Yeah, this is how your Francis or Francis turbine behaves. This is how the your Francis turbine behaves. What happened to your propeller turbine? Propeller turbine at low load conditions, its efficiency is low, fine, but it can go up to 90% at full load conditions. This is how your, we call it as a propeller turbine. So that is the reason why this is preferred in most of your maybe ship and all. What about your Kaplan turbine? Kaplan turbine behavior is almost very similar to your Pelton wheel, but it can have a better efficiency. These are experimental values. So this is for your Kaplan turbine. These are all the performance. See, these two things. One is because maybe I had told in my unit 1 when I was deriving with respect to specific speed. So specific speed is nothing but it is the speed. See, it's a non-dimensional number. So we have derived it. Maybe we want to eliminate the diameter. So you get some kind of a non-dimensional number which is irrespective of the diameter of that particular turbine or pump or whatever it may be. But here specifically with respect to turbine, and somehow that is directly related to your head, n root p by h to power of 5 by 4. That was the formula. When you look at it closely, head plays a very important role. For lower head, I used to get a very high specific speed. For higher head, I used to get a lower specific speed. Now this performance curves, because I need to operate my turbine at a particular head. Say for example, at a particular head. So turbine at a particular head means say 300 or 400 meters, and I want to operate 90-95 efficiency. I will go with the Pelton turbine. And what is the efficiency I may get? 90-92%. I can't go beyond that. But I want to operate at maybe available head actually. Available head is around maybe 100 meters or available head is 10 meters, 20 meters. Then I have the flexibility either to go for Francis or Kaplan turbine. But what is the efficiency? So that also. So loading conditions and your specific speed conditions are very, very important in choosing the turbines. So other than this, so we have other parameters. You might have done this in your lab actually. One is unit speed, unit head, and unit power. Okay, you might have drawn some curves, all those things. And that is not in the part of your syllabus right now. The syllabus is not there, but still we try to plot those things and see that. So under, if the same turbine works under unit head, that is 1 meter, how it's going to behave, whether it is with respect to the speed or with respect to the power developed or with respect to the head developed or the discharge. So these quantities plays a major role in designing or maybe what type of turbine I need to look into it. Okay. Now, once we have seen this, let's look into how we can differentiate or a difference between the impulse and reaction turbine. That we need to bring in. So, difference between impulse and reaction turbine. They keep asking this. So I'll discuss on few points. Maybe you can add to that. Okay. On one side, I'll be having an impulse turbine. Okay. On the other side, I have the reaction turbine. Okay. Let us define the first difference. Let's try the first difference. See, here we look at the kinetic energy. See, the entire kinetic available kinetic energy is first converted into kinetic energy. The energy is first converted to kinetic energy in the nozzle, and then it is expanded. Then it is expanded. Okay, then the expansion takes place. But what is actually here? I am not converting to any form. Okay, the available energy or the available energy, the available energy is not converted to any form. The available energy is not converted to any form. So if this is the case, so what we have to look at actually, whatever the type of energy what we have, we may be having the potential energy, that is your pressure energy and kinetic energy, that may be available. But here what we do in impulse, complete conversion takes place to kinetic, and then we try to explain. Okay. In impulse machines, the water flows through the nozzle and it impinges on the bucket, which are the buckets or vanes are fixed on the wheel. But what happens in case of a reaction machine? The water is guided through the guided blades to flow on the moving vanes. Okay, so let's look at the second. The water flows through the nozzle. The water flow through the nozzle and impinges on the vanes or buckets. We call that as buckets, which are buckets which are fixed. You can call it as, okay, which are fixed buckets, which are fixed on the wheel. This is what happens in case of impulse machine. Here what happens? It is guided. See, water is, or the fluid is, the water is guided through the guide vanes, through the guide vanes. The water is guided to the guide vanes to flow over the vanes, to flow over the vanes on the rotor. This is what happens in case of your reaction. Okay. What will happen to the pressure of the flow water in case of impulse machine? The pressure almost remains same. See, the pressure the pressure of the water flowing remains unchanged or remains same. Let me call it remains same and remains same as it flows over the moving vein, flows over the buckets. And most of the time this will be atmospheric or near atmospheric. What happens in case of the reaction turbines? The pressure of the fluent keeps decreasing or reducing. The pressure of the fluid keeps reducing as it flows over the veins, the moving veins. So will the pressure be atmospheric? Need not be. So this pressure will be above your atmosphere. This pressure will be above your atmosphere. This pressure will be above atmospheric. This pressure will be above atmospheric, and this pressure at the exit, maybe at the exit, it may be near atmosphere. That is last stage of the turbine. This may be atmospheric in case of a reaction turbine, but in between this pressure will be above your atmosphere. But in case of a impulse machine, it almost remains atmospheric throughout. Okay. Now fourth difference. That's like 5 to 6 differences. Fourth difference. Is it necessary for me to water to completely fill your wheel? Not required in case of impulse machine. Okay. It is not required or not essential. Not required for the water to fill, okay, to run full. Okay, that is run full means the wheel, with respect to the wheel I'm speaking, or your turbine wheel or turbine rotor, whatever it means. But here what it should be, the wheel should be completely, should run full and should maybe full kept with water. It's required that the turbine wheel has to be, should always run, should always run full. That means completely filled with water. That is kept full of water. That's the meaning of it. I can write it as, it should be kept full of water. This is the condition. That means it should be completely filled. Okay. Is it possible for me to regulate the wheel? Yes. What we use is, actually, if you able to have some kind of what is called as a spear in case of a impulse machine. The spear will be inside your nozzle and I can regulate the flow. But what we have in case of a reaction machine, we have what is called as a guide vanes. Okay. It's possible to regulate, and we don't regulate this thing. So we use to regulate, we use spear. To regulate the flow of water, spear is used in the nozzle. So what we do in case of a reaction turbine, the guide vanes are, we use guide vanes two guide vanes are used. Okay, let me write that. Guide vanes are used to regulate the flow of water. So what are these guide vanes? These guide vanes are fixed vanes actually, and I can have different percentage of it. So percentage of opening, okay, percentage of opening. So that this particular regulation will clearly tell that. So if it is 30% open, 50% open, the quantity of flowing of water can be regulated using a guide vane. This can be as one set of guide vanes, or you can have two sets of guide vanes. Okay. What about efficiencies? So if you speak of efficiencies, impulse turbine is slightly higher efficiency in terms of hydraulic efficiency. Speak of impulse machines are impulse machines are impulse machines have higher hydraulic efficiency. Hydraulic efficiency. But here what we have this particular thing. So efficiency of this particular machine is slightly the reaction turbine, the hydraulic efficiency is lower compared to impulse machines. If impulse machine is around 65 efficiency, this will be around 50-52. Okay, maybe the last one. The impulse machine operate at higher heads. See, these operate at higher heads. What about this machine? They operate at medium and low heads. They operate at medium and low heads. This is about your classification or sorry differences between your. Maybe if you want, you can add the examples. So example for your impulse machine is your Pelton wheel, and for the reaction machine you can give Francis and Kaplan and propeller turbines. So these are some of that also can be differences. And the major thing what we have to look at is in impulse machine is a major the kinetic energy. So how the kinetic energy is converted and how the this kinetic energy conversion takes place in the rotor. Okay, and if you look at the possibility of the impact of the atmospheric pressure, but in case of your impulse machine, it's not that much affected because almost the pressure inside your casing will be atmospheric. But if you try to, if the pressure falls, with the pressure, what is happening in case of a reaction turbine at any given point, if the pressure drop is, it should be smooth enough. If the pressure or if there is any leakages, all those things we found in case of a reaction turbine, it's little bit difficult to control. Okay, that difficulty we have in case of a reaction turbine. So that problem is not there in Pelton turbine. And reaction turbines are vertically mounted. That also you can bring in. So your impulse machines, so they are almost horizontal.